Jamal Thomas from the Progressive Soapbox. So I could not sleep. My wife went upstairs and I found a really interesting story that I kind of want to do. So I'm going to do it. The strange case of the Sinbad genie movie that doesn't exist even if people insist they saw it. So back in the 90s, there was a movie called Shazaam, I believe. And the question is, who played in Shazam? So a lot of people have been going around saying it's been Sinbad. And even though it was Shaq, I distinctly remember it, and it was Shaq. There was a video game out that even came out, I think it was called Shaq Fu or some weird stuff. But Shaq was in movies. They were bad movies, but he was in movies. But a lot of people insist, they strenuously insist that it was Sinbad. They say they remember it, they saw it, and everything else. So, I think these people have a false memory of something that existed back then. But the part that I'm interested in is, why do they think it? Alright, so this gets a little bit of physics, but I'll be kind of slow with it. And this came across this idea of a simulated reality idea. So, think of it this way. Scientists have a particle. Let's say that particle is this. And they throw that particle through two slits, just like this. The particle has to go through one of the slits, right? It's a particle. So it has to pick one. So the scientist said, all right, the question is which one? And so it puts a sensor on each slit. So as it goes through, depending upon the sensor it goes through, they'll be able to register which slit it goes through. Now, here's the catch. If you don't look at it, it comes back as a wave. If you look at it, it comes back as a particle. Meaning, if the scientists observe to try to say, all right, which slit does it go through? It just goes through a slit, one or the other. And they would see what it hits on the back of the screen. So if it goes through one slit, they see it hit one spot on the back of the screen. If they don't look, meaning they don't put a sensor on which slit, then it goes through both at the exact same time. That is fucking amazing. And if we lived in a physical reality, that shouldn't happen. I mean, if you're sending a particle through, in a physical reality, it's going to go through one or the other. It's not going to, make a choice. It's not going to say, I'm going to do both. It's not going to go as a wave when it's a particle, because a particle is not a wave. And so, of course, this baffled physicists, and as years went on, they've tried more and more complex experiments, and still, the results hold true. If you peek at the results, it's a particle. A choice was made. The very act of looking at it, to some degree, made a choice. If you didn't, it was a wave. No choice was made. Nobody looked. And so it ends up as a wave on the back of the board. On the back of the board, it registers the clicks. So, this is somewhat the beginnings of that thought. Because the thought is, well, what if reality is not what we think it is? I mean, for the most part, particles are 99% empty space. And yet, we feel a physical reality because of fields and all this other stuff. But understand, particles, fields, those things describe our universe. They're not our universe. I mean, a particle is not necessarily a round ball of sorts, even though that's what we classify it as. That's when we try to create a model of it. It's a model. Don't mistake the model with the actual thing. And so the model tries, for the most part, to give explanations of our reality and our world. And in that situation, it says, well, what if what we're considering fields are not really fields? Like, what if there are rules, rule sets? And certain rule sets govern our reality for the most part. So you have a rule set for gravity, you have a rule set for speed, inertia, kinetic energy, all those things. And for the most part, the only fundamental part of reality in that case is consciousness. Meaning, you don't even have a body. You think you have a body. What you have is a mind that, for the most part, creates the body. And it sounds crazy, but think of your dream states. In your dream state, you could walk outside, you could talk to your wife, or your girlfriend, or your mistress. You can go to your car, you can pull out whatever it is, you can talk to the neighbor, you can look up at the stars, you go back into your house. All this was in a dream state. And in that situation, even though you're supposed to be the totality of that dream, you've created a third person of yourself and put yourself through the eyes of that particular person. Again, even though you're supposed to be the creator of the entirety of that dream. I'm making the case that reality is not necessarily straightforward. We have no clue what this is. I mean, you have people who try to describe it. Physicists some physicists go into the thing of simulation physics, saying all the things that they keep trying to do, they keep losing pillars of physicality. Whether it was Newton and Einstein with quantum mechanics, each pillar keeps falling off. At some point, the pillars are the last one, and it's just going to be like, oh, there's no there. It's just consciousness interacting with each other's. So, if we're digital, then there is no physicality for the most part. There's thought. And thought, for the most part, creates that physicality. These things are symbols. So I see my wife. Okay, she's my wife. I acknowledge her as my wife. What I see of her is a symbol of her that I interpret as something else. And who she is. And people see her that way. But my wife, to me, is not the same person she is to my mom, or she's the same person to her mom. Those things are different. And look, I know I'm skating between physicality and consciousness in this, but I'm trying to make the point that what we're calling physicality to some degree are symbols. At least that's where this guy's going. I'm not sure if I'm completely sold on it, but this is where this thinking comes from. I mean, some of it makes sense to me, and some of it, I'm a software engineer, so I put it this way, some of it makes sense to me. In fact, a lot of it makes sense to me. But again, you're in the situation of how do I get evidence towards it, one way or the other for it. And look, you can use all sorts of mystical consciousness science, hints at very weird stuff. So, for example, what's the guy? Virginia, UVA. He was a psychologist. He was doing past life studies, thousands and thousands of papers, without doing any kind of hypnosis or anything else. He was talking to kids. Those kids would remember their past lives, and he would correlate that information with the record. Fascinating. Ingo Swann, remote viewer. The military was having those guys essentially, they call it scientific remote viewing, but it's essentially using consciousness as a facility to explore beyond the sort of regular stuff. For whatever reason, they were able to retrieve information sitting in a room by themselves or with a monitor. They were in the military for 20-something years. The guy's still doing it now. They're pretty amazing. All I'm saying is, this world is not as straightforward. And I know you have some neo-atheists, like some people were like, there's nothing else. Yeah, that's religious. And at the end of the day, the only honest choice is, I don't know. These guys are making the point that if everything is digital, then sometimes data can change. Here's the problem with that. One of the rule set states, if I see something, if anybody has any memory of that particular thing, then that thing is a part of that reality. Meaning, it's trying to make the case that the reason why the double slit works is because nobody knows, nobody took a look, nobody peeked. So the machine didn't have to render anything. It didn't have to render an answer because nobody actually looked to figure out which one it went through. So nobody looked, nobody opened that door. It's a wave. The moment somebody peeks, it's a particle. They're making the case that, well, the problem with their argument is, I saw Shazaam. There's a lot of people that saw Shazam. So it's not a thing that nobody knows that information. It's not something where the information all of a sudden vanished. That's not what took place. People remember it. So that information is part of this reality. And because the information is part of this reality, it would not have been updated. Even by their own rule set. I mean, even by the rules that they're coming up with that's a bit of a stretch. And at that point, you're in a funhouse reality, which, if this is some kind of simulation, I would have a hard time believing that they would put you in a funhouse reality. It needs to have consequences. It needs to have a history. I mean, and the only difference between this and your dream state is And this has a memory associated with it. One event follows another. That's memory. I mean, reality has memory. So, yeah. So I found that story to be fascinating. Absolutely love that story. I didn't go too far into that. So the next story. Pot advocates plan to hand out 4,200 free joints on Inauguration Day. Fucking A. So, I love this idea. The group called DCMJ has announced its plan to hand out upwards of 4,200 marijuana cigarettes near DuPont Circle the morning of Donald Trump's inauguration and the march to the National Mall. I like it. So they're going early on to resist. So Washington, D.C. has, it's legal to give it to somebody, like to friends or whatever else. It is illegal to sell, and it is illegal to possess in certain quantities. So these guys, as a protest, are going to be handing out joints. Fucking A. More power to you. I love it. We should not be throwing people in prison for that. The idea that the cop that locks you up for pot can go home and get wasted, and that is perfectly legal, even though that substance has a much better chance of killing him than pot ever would. Good job, guys. I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah, I like it. Alright, I'm gonna end this. Have a good one.